The biggest question facing Formula One at the moment is whether Mercedes will once more pose a danger. Not if, but when. Furthermore, prior to last year, this question was inconceivable. However, the fact is that Mercedes appears to be struggling in every race, and no one is sure what to do about it. Up until today, when Mercedes just announced their strategies and timetable for returning to the top. Let's examine their remarks and find out when we may anticipate them returning to the front. Toto Wolff, team principal at Mercedes, regrettably predicts that it will take his team 6 to 12 months to catch up to Red Bull in terms of understanding how to get the most out of the current generation of Formula One cars. According to Wolff, Mercedes is making huge steps in the wind tunnel as it pursues a concept change that it believes will open up new performance possibilities. However, it might take some time considering that Red Bull has a wealth of information regarding ground effect automobiles. He also thinks that as the Red Bull concept develops, the gap between progress will inescapably close, allowing Mercedes to outperform it on a relative basis. Will this happen in time for Mercedes to compete for victories this season or perhaps even the following season? I think the lag is probably between 6 and 12 months because that's the time that it took for us to figure out what was actually happening with the car, said Wolff when asked how long it would take to catch up in terms of the level of understanding Red Bull has of the car. And that means we just need to have double the development speed, a strong development slope. Their gains are going to be incrementally smaller if the concept is mature. I think aero-wise, wind tunnel time can help a bit, but not hugely. It's just we've got to get our act together, and if we fundamentally understand where we need to put the car, then the steps are going to be large. But we need to be perfect. The reference to 6-12 months should not be seen as a target time frame for Mercedes to catch up to Red Bull in the standings, as Mercedes is driven to do so as quickly as is practical. However, this time frame might be necessary to return to Red Bull's previous level. Nonetheless, they must continue to be mindful of Red Bull's improvements. Although Mercedes has cited its lack of downforce as a key problem, what truly matters is the ability to fine-tune the aero map and characteristics to optimize that performance utilizing the amount of downforce the vehicles produce, in addition to being able to produce as much downforce as Red Bull can. But why does Mercedes fall short? Mercedes announced even before the first race of the season that it had a modified version planned for the 6th race of the season in Imola in May, drawing a lot of attention to the sidepod design. Technical director Mike Elliott noted that in order to accommodate this sidepod, which he described as different from the Red Bull design and from the current Mercedes Zero sidepod design, packaging modifications must be made under the bodywork. However, the next modification goes beyond the sidepod. The foundation of the current F1 car design is the underfloor, and any modifications should start there. Then, it is tuned as a component of a highly intricate and interconnected network of airflows both on and off the bodywork. Mercedes certainly lacks the expertise Red Bull possesses in this area. To be honest, perhaps we've adopted the word concept to mean sidepod. When asked to define a concept change, trackside engineering director Andrew Chauvelin responded in the negative. What we're doing is looking at bigger departures than what we've been doing. So this car is an evolution of the car that we had last year. A lot of that is tied around where we've got the side impact structure. We're looking at bigger departures because it's evident that this hasn't given us the performance that we'd like. Saying that, there are other areas of the car that we know that we need to improve as well, so it'd be very misguided to think if we go and put a different looking sidepod on it, all of that gap's going to vanish. The reality is that the vast majority of that gap is going to have to come from other performance areas. We've got a lot of projects at the moment trying to bring performance over the next 5 races. Mercedes will gain knowledge as it goes, and it's possible that its current shortfall is due in part to its pre-2022 design trend of operating low-rake automobiles. Red Bull operated a high-rake car under the previous regulations and would have learned about the intricate aero detail of the floor edges, how to alter the underfloor performance at different ride heights, and how the interaction of aero and mechanical characteristics. Mercedes is unaware of this information. Therefore, the conceptual change will push Mercedes into uncharted territory. Wolff's claims about big steps show that the process is going well, but the more advanced the automobile gets, the more exact the control it needs to operate. There could be blockages in the way that temporarily halt progress until knowledge of the underlying aero phenomenon expands. We haven't spent enough time on looking where they find performance because it was important to re-find our own identity, which we did. When asked if Mercedes comprehends why Red Bull and Aston Martin are seeing such success with their automobile designs, Wolff responded in the negative. And now it's only the second step in saying how can we refine our car in order to catch up, and that, of course, means looking closely at these two cars and what they do, how they work, and what is it that we may be missing. Mercedes only committed to this strategy after the Bahrain Grand Prix, but work on the alternative concept was already in progress at that time. He explains how it got off to a fantastic developmental start. Nevertheless, recovering lost ground will take some time. This is clear from both the knowledge deficit and the performance disadvantage, which is around 0.7% based on the first 2 weekends. Wolff won't admit it, but completing the task quickly enough to fight for the title in 2023 is virtually impossible. "We're just 2 races into this year," said Wolff when asked if it's realistic to make up the deficit to Red Bull. "Is it realistic when we look at the gaps today? No, it's not. But we just want to give it all we have and then see what the outcome of that is. We've been able to catch up a lot last year with a car that was bouncing way too much. That was in a way overshadowing everything else, and finally we won a race and we got close to them. That needs to be the aspiration. But what adjustments will they need to make in order to regain their position at the top? That is, after all, the key query." Toto Wolff has previously said that there are no holy cows in the current design and that anything might be altered. The Mercedes CEO recently said that, as the season progresses, it is still possible to replicate designs while adhering to the rules. In their chase of silverware, anything is acceptable. Mercedes has so spoken of positive results from its CFD and wind tunnel work, which it intends to release in the early stages of the European season, having decided to go a different route. Mercedes will make some initial changes that primarily affect the side pods, but the final concept shift will go much further and encompass things like the setup window and ride height. Mercedes is likely to change their strategy as well, even if it is not a straight duplicate of Red Bull's downwash concept, because it appears that the majority of the grid is moving in that direction. Mercedes once thought that the greatest approach to be the quickest in F1 was to create its own design concepts, but Wolff thinks that the important choice today is to just take the route that yields the best results. And he has made it clear that the team would adhere to the Red Bull design if that means doing so. "I think at this stage, we have no dogmatism of how the car should look like," explained Wolff. "It just needs to be the quickest possible race car. And if that car looks like a Red Bull or like SpaceX, I don't care, it just needs to be quick. And if it's a Red Bull, we will put a little bull somewhere with a sticker and I will have no shame if it's quick." Wolff thinks that the holistic approach to where the vehicle is run relative to the track and how it is built up is more important than the side pods, despite the fact that they have drawn a lot of attention in the new direction. "I think the biggest changes that we made is actually looking at where we want to have the car set up in its sweet spot," he said. "We've been too low last year, we've been too high this year, and now we believe we know what to land on. Obviously everything else follows in terms of floor and bodywork that you want to achieve. So I don't want to sound too foolishly optimistic, but at least we see low-hanging fruit with things that are encouraging." How do you feel? When we go to Imola, will Mercedes be sporting a Red Bull look-alike? And will the new design enable them to perform well, regaining the initiative? Or will it take them 6 to 12 months, as Toto Wolff predicted? In the comments section below, let us know what you think of Mercedes' intentions and any modifications you would make if you had the power. Do you like the video? Remember to like and subscribe to the channel so that you won't miss any F1 updates. We appreciate your interest and hope to see you in the upcoming video.